Hi, everybody. This is Amanda Mina about the 25th take. This is about my final paper. After this, I'm giving up. I'm going to share with you, while I tell you about the paper I'm writing, I'm going to share with you a painting that I made just after I realized or I started writing about the moment in time that I wanted to analyze, which I want to analyze using Dr. Welch's ideas of repetition, attention, and intention. Um, I remember when I was 16, I heard Joseph Campbell talk about having moments of bliss. And when I heard him talk about it, I had a sort of an experience of a moment of bliss right then and there, and it was interesting to me. But it's not the moment that I decided to write about. What I decided to write about was a shocking moment, and my experience of this particular shocking moment because it was just one of a few shocking moments in my life. I'm sure we all have had those, hopefully. But this particular shocking moment brought into contrast my sort of feeling of my space uh, in the world, and compared it to what the message that I was getting about my space in the world was. And I think that there were a few newer elements to this experience for me, which made it so much more interesting. And even now, I have this same feeling about it. This painting that you're watching me paint down here in super duper time, um, it's a bit more colorful than the feeling that I had at the moment. But in the end, it wasn't just those black strands and blue strands and darker strands and yellow strands, all the color strands that are kind of singing with me. It's a lot of it has to do with the space in between. I paint a lot of the space in between the lines that seem to be directional, because I think that space has a lot to it. Um, Welch's idea of repetition has this inherent familiarity with it, of course, because it's repeated. You've already sort of felt it. You've experienced something like it. It redirects attention and speeds up the experience of time, which is very much what I found. It instantly redirected my attention to what I wasn't understanding. Um, in this idea of repetition, the past is embedded in the present. Um, establishes temporal structure of cyclicity within the movement and returns to the same space. And I really am going to look at emphasizing this feeling of space that I had within this moment. Um, there's also the notion of abstraction and potentiality. Potentiality is interesting because I wrote about that moment before I actually looked really at what I'd read before, even just sort of writing freeform about the moment. Potentiality played a part in it, and I it was something new to me, and so I'm really gonna, focus a little bit on that, and then exploring how experience, awareness, and self awareness happened to me in that moment, or how it can function in that moment. Um, Attention, right? Attention is the second order. Intention, yeah. Okay. Attention has to do with the collapse. Collapse is a moment through internal and external change, and that I found to be true. It's also a form of entrainment. I have a lot more to do on intention, because so many of the other ideas preceding it uh, just took a lot of me. But I will focus quite a bit on it. The question of dopamine. I'm interested in exploring that. And then finally, the third order layer of complexity, which is intention, it's a question of for me in this moment that I'm writing about. It was a question of the overarching intention as it affected that moment, because actually that moment happened within a time in my life when changes were happening, changes that were focused more on sort of figuring out figuring out all of the things that had happened before then, you know, in my childhood and whatnot. And I really have this strong feeling that that bigger intentionality reached into this moment and sort of pulled me along and added a new dimension that I hadn't seen there before. And so I have quite a bit of brushing up on the reading to do and quite a bit of researching to do, but I think that in the deepening of this particular moment for me, I found connections to ways that time works or functions, because sometimes it does not feel like it works. And what Sean Carroll said about that was it has a lot to do with how we're trying to coordinate with the world around us. When we're unhappy with time, as I have been, well, as far back as I can remember, it has to do a lot with coordinating reality, I think, with the outside world. And that's something that I've struggled with, and I think it's worth exploring. And before this painting ends and the little final screen comes up, I want to say thank you for listening, and thank you for being my classmates during this semester. Thank you, Carrie. Hopefully, this paper reflects all the interesting things that are in this painting. I think it's a good representation of the sort of not really the visceral experience, but it is sort of a visceral piece, and there we go. Thank you. Stop recording.